Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you once again to go through all of the action in the British Basketball League, of which there was a lot this week, Dave, and a lot of dramatic games as well.
Yeah, I know.
See if we can.
A week off, won't we? But I mean,
well,
yeah.
there is one game next week. Some of us are working next Friday night.
Oh, dear me.
Let's start on Tuesday with the London Lions 88 and the Surrey Scorchers 62. Obviously, London missing all their injured guys. Ray is done for the season, we've learned. Lawrence was out in this game, so not really a natural point guard in the starting lineup for either team. And this had the sense of one that was just waiting for London to get away, really.
The phrase is aura of inevitability.
Yes, indeed.
You know, the most notable thing about this game for me was the actual tip-off, because Keith Williams threw the ball up about 6 feet to the left, which it would have been a free kick in rugby for a dodgy put into the
yeah.
And after that, it kind of got away quite quick. Surrey couldn't score on London's defense. London's length really impacted them. London had enough with the lineup that they played with, obviously with Herban back. I think Zubcic was in this game as well. And Sharma's length is just devastating for normal run-of-the-mill BBL teams. Surrey don't seem to have had the same starting lineup for like in 2 games for about 3 months. But I might be wrong about that, but it just feels that way. Every time you look, there's something different.
There's a lot of moving parts in Surrey, and there has been all year, isn't it?
Dobbs, I think Dobbs might have gone. I don't know.
No, Dobbs played in this game, because I remember seeing him and thinking, "Oh, I've not seen Dobbs for a while."
Yeah, but he didn't play in the next game, so I don't know what's going on there. And if you think about it, I mean, with Ray out there and Taylor gone, and Lawrence playing a bit and not playing a bit, and Loadman and all this stuff, there's just very little there. So you've got Carey and Bazumbru, handling, or maybe a bit of Wang. And the other thing I think about Surrey is they've got basically Shackham Johnson, Paddy at Wang, and Dobbs if he's there or if he isn't, and that's their American contingent now. So they have room to bring in others if they want, but it may just be that they've just formed the view that it's just too much has happened already.
Yeah.
And also, what for? Because their season is dead, and unfortunately, I thought Shackham Johnson playing really hard. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he does.
But there's little else to talk about in relation, to them at the minute. Theo gets back healthy, maybe they get something out of him. But it's just tough. They're young. The way they are now is that they are young. Without Taylor and Lawrence, they're a young team, and a young team that hasn't won is generally not a team that's going to find its way to winning.
No. London 8 in a row in the second quarter to get ahead, 9 in a row in the third quarter to put it beyond Surrey, really, and the lead just kept going. Urban with 18 best, and Nelson had 17 each. Nelson also had 9 assists. Martin 17 points, 10 rebounds. Wang 12, Jack Domney 10. Let's go to Friday night. Bristol Flyers 81, Newcastle Eagles 75. Newcastle basically scored every time down. There was a timeout call by Andreas Kapoulis at 9:17, but they kept on going to 9:22. Bristol had no way of stopping Newcastle in the early stages.
Yeah, I don't think Bristol won 6 in a row, so I think they were a little bit happy, to use a phrase, in relation to their attention to detail defensively. And Newcastle starting 5 is actually pretty good. Not great, but it's pretty good if you look at their kind of their on-off numbers. And when that unit is the one unit that Mark has, which is now formed something of a bond, So Newcastle came out really, and you're right. They moved the ball. They got good shots. They're able to kind of utilize Kyle Johnson and get him the ball where he wants it, and defensively, that starting 5 was really kind of locked in. But their bench struggled, and what Bristol are really good at is imposing their physicality on the game. And I thought they did that against Eagles' bench. And Mockford's still injured, which meant that it was kind of Ubiaro and Kennedy and Darius. And, you know, they have to play because you can't play I don't think you can just play 6. But they're not getting anything out of Kennedy.
Nothing.
You know, he's like the last days of Michael Owen at Newcastle United.
Yeah, you compare him to what he was at Worcester.
You know, there's just nothing there. Ubiaro is just, I mean, 20, you know, he's 24, 25 now, so he's not a young guy anymore. And his energy is there, his enthusiasm there, but his decision making is pretty awful at the moment. And there was an example in this kind of game when it was kind of coming back at about maybe just around the beginning of the second quarter. You know, Jelani Watson-Gale playing great. Last time playing against Newcastle, he lit them up for 30. That Jim made all his shots, playing with a degree of confidence. So you can guarantee that he's basically the first person on the Eagles scouting report. And the first, you know, he doesn't get going that early. And the first time he gets a shot is when Denzel Ubiara chooses to switch on the Del Pesh. And, you know, Darius is showing and then retreating back to his big guy, what he's meant to do. And Denzel goes on the big guy and leaves Jelani Watson-Gale stood there for a foul shot. And that type of mistake, you just can't live with, not in February. You know, you have to be on point in relation to all these guys, because everybody else is on point in relation to you. And that kind of thing, I think, happens a little bit too regularly for the Eagles. And what it meant was that it gave Bristol that foothold to come back in, because if you're on the road, you want to keep winning, you have to keep going. You know, you come back, and then the team that's used to winning gets their energy going, and then it's actually harder than it would have been if you hadn't started that way. And from that moment on, you know, Jelani Watson-Gale was basically the best guard on the court.
And
you've
so he and Bell combined for an 11-3 run in that spell that you're talking about there, and it's 25-30 early in the second quarter, and then they'd got it level by half time.
You know, I'm saying, you know, you've got 3 American guards on the court. You've got Cohen, Hamlet, and Miller. You know, 3 American ball handling guards, and Gale was by far the best of all of them. You know, let's put passports to one side here. You know, he outplayed all of them. Newcastle's guards end up 5 of 23 in this game. You know, and you can't win like that on the road if you've only got and they only got 2 of them. So, you know, they haven't got any depth in that spot. So those guys aren't able to produce offensively. They're going to struggle to score enough. But Watson-Gale's kind of composure and court presence has improved so much over the past 2 or 3 months. You know, and you can see that he knows. Not only does he know, does he believe that he's meant to be there, he believes he's actually as good as or better than guys he's going up against. So he's got to fear up. So yeah, after that it was kind of up and down again. Newcastle starting 5 in the third quarter, came out and did well. You know, French is you know, playing really solid basketball in the middle. But once Mark had to go to his bench, then again there's just not enough scoring there.
Let's skip it on towards the end because there's a few bits to get through here. Watson-Gale had a 3, which looked very close to the line, hard to tell from the angle of the camera, and then an assist to Delpesh, which made it 72-66 with 2:56 to go. And then 1:47 to go. Gordon with the block, ran back in transition, 72-68. And then we get the intriguing bit where for a moment, until you spoiled the fun on Twitter today, Dave, a moment I thought we've gone back to you remember the old days of the 30-second shot clock where you used to get 10 seconds to advance the ball into the front court. It was very, very close to 10 seconds if you were looking at the shot clock. The shot clocks in Bristol are the ones without the tenths of a second. So when you see 16 on the shot clock, it's an 8-second violation, unlike the ones with the decimals where you have to actually see 15 on the shot clock. It's very, very close as to whether his heel comes up off the halfway line when it says 14 on the shot clock, which would have been therefore 10 seconds. So it's somewhere between sort of 9.5, 9.8, maybe.
There was 2 things about this. The first one actually you wind back because you know the table didn't cover themselves in glory in this game. Because if you wind back to the end of the second quarter, the scoreboard is showing that the Eagles have 3 team fouls. And Hamlet takes a pretty daft foul with 2.5 seconds to go in the backcourt. And the ref signal 2 shots, and coaches on the court saying, well, there's only 3 team fouls. Well, the scoreboard was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not good.
No.
It's not, you know, you know, everybody works to a visible scoreboard, and, you know, you can't expect everybody to be looking at checking the scoreboard to see if there's a thing, target. Now, I don't know if Hamlet fouled deliberately or not. I mean, I'd be surprised, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you know, it's, you know, if say he did in a misapprehension, you know, that actually cost the Eagles a point. But it's not good. You know, you cannot have that mistake.
No.
And the second one was this incident, because when you look back on the clock, it's quite clear the clock starts at 22.
Yeah.
You know, and I give the ref a little bit. I give the ref some leeway.
Well, I give the ref some leeway on the basis that what you're saying is that actually, if you look at the game clock rather than the shot clock, it's probably 7.5 seconds that he gets across the halfway line. But my thing is, if it gets to 6 or 7 seconds as the trail ref, you should be looking at the
I agree, and that's why I say
the thing, and therefore you would have seen 15 at the point at which you looked and would have called an 8-second violation. It wasn't an 8-second violation, I don't believe, but the clock made it look like it was.
Yeah, that's why I say some leeway. Some leeway is that as a ref, you've got an internal clock in your head.
Yeah.
You know, so and to be fair, if somebody's walking the ball over half court, to be an 8-second violation, you know, it's either because there's been a bit of silly kind of dawdling around in the backcourt where the point guard's been waiting to get the ball off a forward and then walking up the court, or because someone's walking extremely slowly. And I didn't, to be honest, at the time I was watching the game, I didn't spot it. I didn't know in my head. He's going very slowly, you know. But you're right.
There was another one, by the way, in the Leicester game that I spotted in real time, and they didn't. Manchester didn't get it over. And there was another one today in the Cheshire game, late on, where I don't think Leicester got it over in time. I didn't bother checking it precisely.
I did actually.
Oh, did you? I didn't think they got it over. Did they?
Was it a 16 or a 15? It's a 50. Is it a 15?
It's 16 clock in there, isn't it?
16. They didn't get it over. No, so the 16. No, they didn't get it over. And I think, so that's probably going to be a point of emphasis moving forward. You know, as the game gets slower and as the playoffs arrive, refs are really going to have to be kind of locked into that. So what should have happened though, seriously, the way it should have done is that, you know, you put a shot clock operator on the table, right? They press that button to restart the shot clock. If it comes up to 22, you press the horn.
Yeah.
Because the shot clock's not working properly.
Yeah. Because it did flash as if it was being reset, and then it just, as you say, came up to 22.
22, and especially the specific shot clock operator there to do that, and you've got to deal with that immediately and press the horn. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, you know, it wasn't a great day for the table at Bristol. You know, you've got the visual scoreboard has to be right in relation to the score, the clock, and the team fouls. But the individual fouls, you know, you can, you know, as a coach, if that, I never trusted it anyway. I don't think they've got them. The individual fouls, you're always keeping an eye on the board, on the blocks that go up. But the score, the team fouls, and the clock has to be right, and they weren't right. Good. So
this matters. The reason this matters is because whether it is an 8-second violation or not, which we don't think it was, even though visually it looked like one. Watson Gale drives, kicks to Allison in the corner, and Allison makes a 3-pointer that turns it out to a 7-point lead, 75-68.
Yeah, and to be fair, Watson Gale made a great play, but Cohen didn't defend him very well. He let him get to his right, you know. And there's a lot of you can see, and maybe a little bit of tiredness because of the amount of minutes that some of those guys are playing. But there's defensively, there's a lot of, you know, breakdowns that the Eagles can clean up, and that they're not cleaning up on a regular basis, which is now, because they're competitive now. It is now kind of a difference between a close win and a close loss. You know? And that type of thing, whereby you're letting Watson Gale square you up and drive to his right and fling it out to the corner. You know that can't happen at that time of the game. So that became 7. And Newcastle only scored, I think, 10 points in the fourth quarter. And their offense, again, you know, their offense kind of dried up because the guards, you need cheap points on the road, and they didn't get any cheap points in this game.
Next play down, Gordon blocked by Bell, called for a foul, 2 free throws. What did you make of that call?
Gordon blocked by Bell.
Yeah.
What did he do? I can't remember.
He was right at the rim. He went at him at the rim, and my personal take was it looked like a good block to me.
I didn't think enough of it to form a view.
Okay.
So at that point, I can't even remember the play. Down it might well have been.
They then it was one of them where Newcastle never quite had enough. Gordon made a 3 to make it a 4-point game, but they just did enough, and then turnover from Gordon, and that was basically it.
Gordon really played well in this game. He showed up. He hadn't showed up in the previous 2 games early on, and he is a player, but we know they're just a bit short. They're paying for all the changes they made earlier. They're one guy short without Mockford, and Mockford hasn't given them that much, but. If the way that he played in the last game and in the game before that, if you can get 15 minutes out of him, then it makes things a lot easier for them. Bristol just rolling is a phrase. They're playing with a degree of confidence in themselves. I didn't think either team, other than the first quarter of Newcastle, I didn't think either team played particularly well in this game.
What's in the name?
Oh, sorry.
There you go. You're trying to find this block now, aren't you?
I will do.
This was extending their club record win streak, which goes until later on in the show. We won't ruin what's going to come up. Watson Gale, 16 points, 5 of 5 shooting, 4 assists. Again, right in front of the GB coach. He's certainly made the case when playing against Mark Stoutel, hasn't he? To be not only in the squad but actually in the team.
But it's 16 points on 5 shots, right? He came in September and October and November as a gunner. He was coming in jacking shots.
Yeah.
In my mind, he was jacking shots. And then he was making enough of them because he's shooting 39% from 3. So he's making enough of them for him to be allowed to jack shots, Coming, he was shooting 29%. He wouldn't have been doing that. No. He wouldn't have been allowed. He wouldn't have gotten the court. But but the impressive thing about his maturity, which is what I was saying to you, earlier, is that he's slowed down. So he's actually affected that game by being the best guy in the court and having 16 points on 5 shots, not 25 points on 19 shots.
Yeah.
And and so that bodes really well. It's still internationally, obviously he's going to have to deal with issues in relation to his size and the fact that he is still a scorer as opposed to a pure setup guy, and how that fits in national basketball. It will be tough, but look, this is a success story.
Yeah, definitely.
This is a success story. His kid come out of Division 2 college, where no one's really talking about him that much. He's averaging 19 a game there, but he's coming quite quietly, and he's elevated himself within that team. So great.
Ollison and King both had 13. Gordon, 7 of 11 shooting, 21 points, 8 rebounds. Johnson, 19 points. Hamlet, 15 points, but far from his most efficient game. 4 of 13 shooting. He also missed 3 free throws.
Yeah, he missed 2 today as well. Yeah. And he's hitting the wall, I think. And it's the way I've seen, the rookie kind of. Not to say he's a rookie. He's kind of a rookie. He hasn't played much. He's got, he had obviously went back to America for a baby 2 months ago. He just he hasn't had that same bounce this weekend, or that same commitment to himself. If you almost, his defense wasn't that great today, and offensively, he is somebody who should not be shooting, 4-13, and same with Cohen. Cohen's 1 of 10, so they're 5 of 23 from the 2 guards. You can't win like that.
No. Let's go to the sports park. Surrey Scorchers 95. Plymouth.
What I will say about that 5-23 is that it would have been. I'm quite sure Mark would have quite liked to have had Aaron Best and Luke Nelson to come off the bench.
Yeah, I'm sure. Surrey Scorchers 95. Plymouth City Patriots 105 after overtime. Lawrence back, but off the bench. So Kyle Carey was into the starting lineup, and as predicted by the Mystic Tape last week, Joanne Daniels is no longer with the Plymouth City Patriots.
2, I think, aren't we?
Yeah. 2. The Kyle Carey went nuts in this one. He was just absolutely gunning. They led by 11 in the first half. He was 10 of 11 from the floor, 6 of 7 from 3-point range. For 27 points at halftime. His most made threes in a game before this was 4. His most points in a game before this was 22. But everything he put up went in this one.
Yeah, it's freedom for you're going to play, don't you? So you have that freedom to make plays, and and to be fair, Plymouth sat on his own quite a lot and miraculously failed to locate him on multiple occasions. And he shot the ball really well. And he drove and attacked the rip as well.
If you look at his shot in the first half, it's literally 3-pointers and layups, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and Plymouth were pretty lax to start with, I thought. I don't want to knock Surrey because they came out and they made some shots and made some plays. And obviously Carey, because I wanted to go back and watch this game and work out how he made 20, how he had 27 and a half, was impactful, significantly impactful. But they didn't, the issue for Surrey was ultimately they didn't get the stops that they needed when they were making shots. So they kind of let Plymouth hang around, and unfortunately when, you can be pretty sure Kyle's not going to score 54.
Yeah.
So he's got 27.
Gadsden was the one that was keeping Plymouth in touch in the first.
Well, and that's the thing. And Gadsden's a guy with Plymouth now who, now PJ's elevated him to starting lineup. He's starting 3 guards. This league is, as ever, it's every year. And teams start off thinking, that they're big and they're going to bully people, and they end up playing like 3 guards and a tweener at the 4. Sheffield have done it. Plymouth are doing it. Newcastle are doing it with Johnson, Kyle Johnson at the 3. It always smalls down. Always reduces because as the season goes on, shot creation becomes more important. As shot creation becomes more important, you want more people who can create those shots. So Plymouth have done it to go small. By doing that by putting extra scorer like Gadsden on the court, that frees up LVC to shoot the ball a bit more as well, because there's more focus on him. And when Jules also comes, it starts the game, so Jules gets a chance to kind of run the point a little bit, which again frees up, puts LVC into a scoring mindset. That's massive. People, I'm not sure it's always one of those things to look at when you're looking at point guards. Is Newcastle have had it with Hamlet this year when they've moved him off the ball. Caledonia had it with Sloan a little bit as well. Do you get that balance of scoring or passing? And the one thing about Dusha is that he's always kind of been one or the other. He'd have multiple games where he doesn't score a point and he has 9 assists, or he'll have a game where he goes off for 20. And Plymouth need him to score. In fact, where the league is now, everybody needs everybody to score. If you're a non-scorer in the league at the moment, you've got a problem being on the court. And by starting those 3 guards, and then Hawthorne for a bit of energy, and Hassan in the middle, I mean, they're very small, but so what? You can run them down and score. And what PJ did was he kind of sat them in the zone a little bit and kind of, cheated on defense a little bit to get some possessions through, which they just about survived. But then it means you can run, and and one man. And the other thing that's so valuable in this league is the one-man fast break. And that's Cheshire have just signed Archibald. He's a one-man fast break. They've already got Austin. You've got Gadsden, who is obviously a one-man fast break. You had Quincy Taylor, who's a one-man fast break. And that can separate teams from about 8 to 10 points a game.
Pretty tight in the second half, so let's spin it forward to the end. 2.5 minutes to go. Wang 3-pointer makes it 79-70. Hassan then misses 2 free throws, but Brandon steals the ball. Gadsden hits a 3, and Plymouth are back on top. Go on.
Sorry, have to win this game.
Yeah, must.
Right, they're up by 9. They're not saying they have to win because of the league table. They're up by 9 on their own court. 2.5 minutes to go. Right, they have to win this game from that point. No matter who's on the court.
I
don't think anybody had fouled out, so I don't think they were in any foul trouble. And I wouldn't say they choked. They didn't. They don't have the player on the court there who's ready to take over and take control of the game offensively to get them what they need. Because the only way a team can come back from 9 down with 2.5 minutes to go is if you stop scoring. You're thinking it's about the defense. It is, but if you score a couple of possessions in a row, it's done. They're not scoring 15 points in 2.5 minutes. And so they kind of blew it. But go through it.
So Gadsden 3 puts Plymouth ahead 79-80. Minute and a half to go. Carey fouled on a 3 by Brandon, goes 2 of 3 from the free throw line, so it's 81-80. 1:17 to go. LVC down the lane. Bit of a circus finish for an AM1. 81.
Yeah, they let him go
83.
right. And this is just what I was talking about. They let him go to his right, and at that point, you've really got to be locked into your scouting report. You've got to be locked into knowing that if he's going to his right, he's going to finish better than if he's going to his left. And it's how you defend that middle screen and roll in the clutch. It was just like, what I was saying with Cohen and Watson Gale. I'm watching and thinking, you've got to send him left, you've got to send him into the screen. What are you going to do to take the ball out of his hands to make somebody else beat you? Because he played really well. And they didn't do that defensively. Frustrated me.
Jack Germany was blocked by Hassan with 55 seconds to go. Plymouth ran the clock, and then LVC in the corner, long two, 33.8 seconds to go, 81-85.
At this point, Plymouth have to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wang, top of the key, but a very deep three, 84-85.
Here's my thing, Dan. If you're up 4,
Yeah.
you don't give up any threes.
Yeah.
Don't give up any threes, no matter where he shoots it from, because that means with a foul, it's still a 1-possession game, right? You run them off the line. If you give up, but you try and get some help there. If you give up a 2, you're up 2. You're not doing foul shots. Ultimately they're gonna make a bad offensive play, and you're gonna get away with it. You give him a 3,
and because he was so far out, if he goes past you, there's a lot of time for the help to cover.
He's not a guy who passes much.
Yeah.
He's not. Now, to be fair, he's only shooting 25-26% from the 3-point line. Yeah. So on the numbers, it's not a bad shot to have him to say, "Oh well, if he makes that, so be it." But on the situation, when you're up 4, the biggest
22 seconds to go. Yeah.
Biggest thing is no threes. Because you want to be in a situation where you can win the game with foul shots, and he knocked down the shot, fair enough, and they got the foul, didn't they? Eventually.
Well, eventually they tried to trap first, and then when they got out of the trap, they lost a lot of time in the front court before the foul was eventually called. So LVC goes to the line with 9.5 seconds to go. So that's basically 13 seconds gone. He makes both free throws, 84-87. Timeout, advanced the ball. At this point, we'd turned on because our game in Leicester had finished. And I said to Ro, who's taking the shot? And then I said, I think it's going to be Josh Steele. I'm just going to throw that out there to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was really even a screen. I just thought,
who's getting cut this week then, Dan? Come on.
Well, I don't know.
No, it wasn't. He just kind of beat him to a spot.
Just kind of beat him to the spot, and he got enough room to. LVC was chasing him, but he got enough room to knock down the shot. Ties the game 87-87 with 7.1 to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was great defense, but I wouldn't say it was bad defense. You're expecting to have to trail him over the screen. You kind of expect him to curl, because that type of shot whereby you catch the ball going that way, almost coming, vertical to the ball, and turn and shoot. That's a heck of a shot. It's a tough shot to make, and he knocked it down and knocked it down clean as a whistle.
Yeah, it was actually so clean that Rowe didn't think it had gone in, and because then the ball comes in, and then we obviously didn't have the sound up because the PA was going, and he's like, "What's happened?" I said, "I think they've called a timeout." And he went, "Wait, did that go in?" I thought it fell short. It did look like it did look a bit odd because it went down so quick off the back of the ring. So timeout, advance the ball. Gadsden drives to the basket. Teo gets across and takes the charge.
Yeah, good day.
And then I don't know what Carl Carey was thinking of. It was a bit of a football throw in from the end line to try and throw it into the front court. Nothing good is going to come of that, and they almost turned it over basically. So we go into overtime, and I just thought at that point, Surrey had lost the game in regulation, if you like, even though it went to an extra 5 minutes, because there was turnovers. They were sort of trying to force it into Boban, and I just thought Plymouth were
I'm going to say this. I don't know why. I'm not sure why Boban was on the court ahead of Johnson, to be honest. Jackham Johnson had 1 foul, and the first couple of times down, they were really trying to force feed it, and it was getting nowhere. It was redolent of that Leicester Manchester game where they decided they were going to throw it to Taj Green every time, and they were doubling Taj, and it wasn't working. And it's like, and I was looking at the bench. Actually, looked at the bench, and Shackham Johnson. I had to check the stats to see how many. He's got 1 foul. He's sitting on the bench, in that look with that look that players have with their towel, with the towel behind their head. thinking I should be playing.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't get why Lloyd ran Boban the whole overtime. I think by all means a couple of plays, but if you ain't finishing at that point, you've got a guy who's played hard, who's played aggressively, who I don't think did much wrong for them in the whole game, has one foul, and he's sitting on the bench thinking, oh, it's not my fault if we lose. He's not coach ain't playing us. And I thought that made a big difference because what happened was not only did Boban struggle at one end, Rashad Hassan made a couple of jumpers on him. You know, took him outside. And basically, you know, the overtime came down to Hassan v Jack Domi, and Hassan dominated.
Yeah. That's basically it. So Carey, 12 of 13 shooting in the end for 33 points and 5 assists.
Good one for the stats.
Wang, obviously career highs in both. Wang, 16 points and 11 assists. Jack Domney, 13 points. Gadsden, 32 points, 12 of 14 from the free throw line. Dusha, hey?
When did you see today's numbers?
Yeah. Dusha, 19, 5 rebounds and 6 assists, and Hassan, 16 points. So
when I said, just briefly, when I said Wang doesn't pass it much, what I mean is once he's driving, because he has 11 assists, so I don't want to put him down as he's not a ball hog or anything like that. You know, when he's playing the point, he moves the ball, but once he kind of puts his head down, he's looking to get to the rim.
Yeah.
No, that's what I was saying. You make him put his head down and take 2 dribbles.
And if I was athletic as him, I'd be looking to get to the rim as well. Yeah.
It's not a criticism. It's just the way they should have guarded him.
Right, so let's go to Glasgow, where Caledonia Gladiators beat the Cheshire Phoenix 83-78. Sloan back into the starting lineup after that rib issue that hampered him last week. Ali Fraser played 3 minutes. Larry Austin, who missed last week with a hamstring injury, was back. Sloan in the starting lineup, scored the first 5 points of the game, and the Gladiators were quickly out to a 9-point lead.
Yeah, Gareth got to that point in February he normally gets to whereby all the Americans are starting. So when Sloan comes in the starting lineup, it's not Durham who drops out, it's Jimenez. Albeit I don't have the Spanish twang that the commentator.
No, he does a good job on that, Stuart.
For me, he's a Geordie, he's Jimenez. And I don't know if it's a silent Z or not, I don't know, or an A, whatever. And Sloan came out and played like it was October, you know, he was comfortable and moved the ball. He moved the ball he needed to, got the shots when he needed to. And you can kind of see that Durham has a settling effect on them. Because with the basketball, he has a degree of composure about him, which is he's kind of got the whole pass shoot, where am I getting my shots from thing figured out. You know, he's got a nice rhythm to his game. And I think that helps them. The game went back and forwards a little bit, but Cheshire struggled with Caledonia this year, I think. And they were a little bit slow out of the blocks again. I felt that throughout the game that Caledonia, had this game.
So the back and forth that you were talking about was Knicks closed the gap. Then Bunyan made a couple of shots, pushed it out to 33-20 early in the second quarter.
I hope Johnny Bunyan's getting paid points per minute. 5 points in 3 minutes, and Gareth says, "See you later." I'm assuming that's because of the matchups with Austin and Evans, or maybe because he was hurt or something like that. That's the type of agency maybe they get at the end of the season, which doesn't talk about how many points they scored per game, but gives you the per 40-minute numbers.
Yeah.
He only played 8 minutes a game, but he's averaging, you played 4, you're averaging 24 and 12. It's like, well, okay, why is the coach only playing him 8? But yeah, so that's right. So he kind of settled with that.
So then Evans had 8 in a 15-3 run by the Knicks to tie it up at 39-39. And then in the second half, a 15-4 run by Caledonia around the final break had them 66-56 ahead, and they started to look a bit comfortable at that point. But then you got a 3, a steal, and an and 1 from Archibald, and they scored 6 points in about 5 seconds to get it back to 66-62.
Yeah, they threw the ball. Jimenez and Malcolm, I think, threw the ball away and on the inbounds. was
And
actually
actually, I thought that was Caledonia's problem down the stretch. Or they had so many turnovers that they couldn't put them away.
Yeah, couple of things on that. I mean, there was a flop warning frustration for me in this game. Early on in the game, Onwas, I think, quite properly got a flop warning for trying to take a charge. It really was, it was a bit fall over. There were two subsequent times when Glasgow fell over. One was on an attempt charge taken by Bailey, which was never, and another one was on a 3-point attempt near the end where fell over. And having dug a hole for yourself by calling the flop warning in the first three, if you're going to play those rules, I hate to say it, you've got to keep calling it. And
there was one game today where I thought there were two. I forget which game it was. Where I thought it was that's another flop warning. So surely it's a technical, but it wasn't.
I thought that too. I couldn't remember. I think it might be the Manchester game. But no, I was just a little bit kind of, well, what are we doing this or not? My view is dispense with flop warnings unless you're absolutely 100% sure that you are that there is somebody who is taking the mickey. I'd much prefer a referee gave a sarcastic, withering look at him who was cowering on the floor, having given up the entirety of his manhood, and forgive me for the sexism, in attempting to finagle a call out of a referee by being weak than the other guy. Just look at him, stare at him, just look at him with contempt. That's none of this flop one stuff. But even if you're going to do it consistently. Didn't do it consistently in this game. Beyond that, I think Gareth got a technical at some point as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I can't remember what that was for. There was something.
There was a call beforehand, which I can't remember what it was, but I feel like he was probably right. I think it was one of those.
That was my impression as well. Yeah, I think that was my impression. But again, look into it. So yeah, so I thought one thing. But yeah, and then Cheshire have this ability because it's the Archibald's just another athletic guy who can make shots. Probably helps them actually because Evans is playing. To be fair, we can't overlook Evans has kind of had a shot of adrenaline in February because he's shooting the ball so much more efficiently.
Yeah.
Season. And Evans has been a guy who, even at Bristol last year, he takes tough shots. He's a tough shot maker. He's not a guy who necessarily, is particularly discriminatory in relation to the quality of the shots that he takes. But he makes tough. But he does make enough of them to be able to take them. Now, at the beginning of the season, he really wasn't making enough of them. But now you can see he's developed the confidence, and it's kind of it's a thing with having Evans and Austin and who's got the ball and who hasn't got the ball, and they've kind of fitted together a little bit more now. Austin is really attacking, and Evans knows he's able to get his pull up when he wants it. So he played well in this game as well. He's aggressive in this game.
So let's get to the last minute. 79-76 off the back of a Cheshire timeout. And Austin to the rim, couldn't get it to go. Gladiators again tried to turn the ball over, but failed. Bailey missed a three. Sloan, though, with an offensive rebound. 20 seconds to go. Sloan to the basket. A lot of contact between him and Evans. No call. 81-76. I watched it a couple of times, and I thought it's probably a block if I was calling anything.
Initially, I thought it was a charge. First thing I thought that's a charge, and he's gone down. But then when you're right, when you see the kind of the close up and
the down the court angle they had,
you see the lean, as much as he leans. So I haven't really got much problem with the ref not calling anything there if he's not sure.
Yeah.
Then I've got they are the hardest calls in the game. You'll never hear you'll virtually never hear me criticize a ref on a block charge call. I might tell them that they got it wrong, but that's because their calls are you're going to get wrong. You get 90% of those calls right because they're so close. It might be 55-45, it might be 60-40 call, and and you're going to have a different angle, and you might have a better angle than we have. So initially I thought it was a charge, but then no, I saw what they saw.
Evans then misses the three, and there's a run out for Bailey to seal the win. Durham with 17 points, Bailey 16 points, 11 rebounds, Sloan 13 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Evans, as you say, shooting a lot and shooting well. 26 points he had. Archibald 13 points, Austin 12 points and 5 assists.
Yeah, that's 51 points from their guards, isn't it? It's a lot of points from their guards.
51 of 78.
Yeah, 51 of 70. That's difficult to be sustainable, I think, with those three having to do that much heavy lifting.
Leicester Riders 104, Manchester Giants 84. Still no Whelan. Connor Washington out again. Robinson still missing for Manchester. So Evan Walsh into the starting lineup for Leicester. And Manchester took absolutely nothing away, and Leicester were 25-8 up fairly comfortably.
Rob took one look at the team he started last week and junked it. And I like that. I think that's you've got to be certain when you're coaching, particularly in February. You've got to be certain as to what you want and how you think your team is best going to operate. And I think he took the view that Mackenzie's earned the starting point guard spot, which he has, indisputably. And rather than plugging Love into something that he isn't necessarily suited to, and then having everybody else knock around, you're better off putting Walsh in, who isn't Whelan, but is basically the same, going to do the same things. Yeah. And then you can bring Love off the bench and you can run your second unit. And obviously he also swapped out Menzies and brought back Nelson Henry.
Yeah.
Menzies had the problem with Cork against Sheffield,
He was also ill during the week.
But I think that swap's done for the season, to be honest. He might have been, I know what you're saying, but I think whether he'd have done it if he wasn't ill, I don't know, but I don't necessarily think it was a bad call. It's very difficult to play a centre who you take out after 5 minutes, he doesn't kind of go back in. And then they play the next first 5 minutes second half, and then he doesn't go back in because you kind of that it's dispiriting for the player as well. It just feels like he's just filling a hold. Whereas that's what happened against Sheffield. So I think bringing back Nelson Henry kind of helps. I think it helps them as well. I know Manchester played this like it was a summer run on the jump. They played like it was like I don't know what the beach is in Malibu Beach or California or something like that. I mean, you might say, oh, they got a lot of offensive rebounds. Every time they didn't get an offensive rebound, it was a layup or a dunk. At one point, there was a 5-0 break, 5-0 break. They booming. I thought their attention to any form of kind of organized basketball concept was basically nil. The defense, offensively, they ran what they run and they're good players, so they're going to score, But in relation to everything else that you need to do to kind of be competitive in Leicester, they weren't. They weren't there, and they hang around enough because they score a bit, and at times, they get the ball to their pet plays, and even then, Dirk was 1 of 11, which doesn't help them if you're 1 of 11 from 3, and Fletch got some stuff from the elbow and all that type of stuff. But their attention to detail defensively, their kind of commitment to getting back in transition, as I say, it's all right gambling for offensive rebounds and saying how athletic you are, but if you're sending 3 guys to the glass every time, then somebody better be running back.
Yeah.
Leicester are sneakily good in transition, because they move the ball so well. So the ball gets past the head quicker, and they find good shots in transition. And they did that all night against Manchester. And to be honest, it got there was no jeopardy in it. Nothing.
No, they had an 8-0 run to get it to 5 just before halftime. Leicester then had 7 unanswered early in the third quarter to get it back to 65-50, and that was basically.
Well, yeah, and that's the start. That's the start. So you insert Mackenzie and Nelson Henry, and with Walsh, doing a pretty decent job as a player. Doing what you'd expect. I mean, I'm not sure Manchester really committed to making him shoot the ball. I think if I had the choice between the way Mackenzie's shooting it, Loving, Jackson, and Nelson Henry in the post, I think I'd be, saying I'd be having them force feed it to Walsh and make him make plays. But they didn't seem to put any form of, discipline or thought into that. And that's not to say Walsh wouldn't make the shots anyway. So it's just, as a coach, it was kind of, you come out, if you're a Rob, you come out of that game kind of vindicated, thinking, actually, we haven't got Connor, we haven't got Patrick, but actually, we're still pretty good. But it comes from the discipline. You have to play disciplined. And I thought, in comparison, I think Vince probably thought the same thing, because the way they played tonight was very different to the way they played on Friday night.
Yeah.
Very, very different. So I think there may have been some home truths spoken about about doing things that maybe aren't quite as exciting or fun. but you need to do if you're going to try and win games.
Loving with 25 and 7. Jackson 18 points from 8 shots. Mackenzie 16. Probably worth mentioning Bowman with 12 points off 4 shots off the bench, and Walsh.
Yeah, he made some threes. I mean, his progress is going to be dependent. You know, he is what, 6'6". He's athletic as hell. Pardon the language. He is, you know, he's averaged 20 a game in NBL. He has the tools. What's going to carry him is his shooting. Or is he going to be able to shoot the ball? Now in this game, he made a couple of threes, which he made another night, which is big, because that's going to be the skill which gets him on the court at a higher level. And when I say a high level, I'm going as far as GB here. Not at the moment, clearly, but you know, if you think of another guy that Rob had, Jamel Anderson, you know, who probably played at Essex, you know, couldn't hit the rim. The first 2 years we didn't guard him, but with the work and the work ethic and the facility and the ability to practice like a pro, made himself into a, you know, pretty certainly a high level shooter for BBL. And that's got to be Bowman's path. You know, because if he has that, he's gonna have a first step on most people. Problem is, there's no point having a first step if you can't use it, because no one's coming anywhere near you. You know, so that's him, and you know, I mean, his progression will be interesting, because he hasn't played that much. He played 5 minutes here, 7 minutes there. It's very difficult for a young player to come into it, and kind of the fact that, you know, we all know that we're in a kind of a procession to Kensington, to Buckingham Palace for the London Lions, without saying anything recklessly. You know, we all know they're going to win the league. So the benefit for Leicester is that, you know, Rob doesn't have to be, you know, forcing guys out there who aren't fully healthy. He can give those players minutes, because ultimately they're probably going to finish second. They might finish third. You know, at the end of the day, what he has to be looking at now is, you know, because, you know, how many of these, and to be honest, a lot of the coaches around the league need to be looking at this now. You know, who are we going to retain? What this season has showed you is that if you put together 9 new players, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle big time, and that's primarily Newcastle and Surrey. You know, have some talented players, but just finding the right guys and then gelling them together, you don't have time. So every team needs to be looking at who is for next year, who is for the year after. You know, and that's with the fact that some of the better players will obviously go off to pastures new and earn more money. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, if, you know, even if Whelan and Washington come back, whether those minutes remain for Bowman and Walsh, because they don't really improve that much without playing. You can practice, but you know, you need ultimately to be thrown in there. That's how Connor got to where he got to, because Rob threw when they weren't winning, and eventually he builds up, and Jamel as well, and they build up the resistance and the good habits, and then eventually you kind of get over the top. And once you built that player, then that's great. And even what Darius did, you know, 10 years before that, Darius didn't play for his first 3 years, or basically behind Bernard Stewart for 3 years. You know, he caught the ball, either dunked it or travelled, you know, and that was it. But you build, eventually you earn it and you build it up, and eventually you become. And, you know, we get a bad rep in this country at times for not developing players, but, you know, people expect British players' development to be linear, and it's not. No. You're not going to get a guy who's just going to go from A to B to C to D, because it's so much about the individual. You know, it isn't about the fact that you're British, and you've been told ever since you were 16 that you're the next great player. That can be unhelpful. It can be more than unhelpful, because a coach looks at you and says, "You ain't going to help me win at the moment." If as a player you're not willing to get your head down and do the stuff that the coach wants for limited reward, and look at Evan Walsh, he's been at Leicester 2 years now, and he hasn't played much. All right, but if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to make it. And so it's not about the skills that somebody's got, or the fact that coaches don't like playing. If a player helps you win, a coach is going to play you, right? And at times, I think in this country we have a kind of there's an entitlement not necessarily amongst the players, but amongst those who see, you know, well, he's 20-year-old, he's 21-year-old, he's a British player, but no one's giving him a chance. It's you got to earn your chance. you know, and because no one's paying you to lose.
No. Walsh, 5 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Menzies also 10 and 11 rebounds. Lewis, 4 of 8.
Menzies good.
Yeah.
Remarkable really, because you'd think that, as I say, the matchup for him is Cork as opposed to Green and Manchester, but he there was limited physical resistance down there even when Robertson was in, but he was really good in this game, so he bounced back really well.
Lewis, 4 of 8 threes for 16 points. Fletcher, 16 points. Green, 15 points off 18 shots and 10 rebounds. Dirk, you did him a favor there because he was actually 1 of 12 from 3-point land, which is probably his worst ever shooting game. He had an 0 for 9 against Sheffield in February 21.
Which is exactly why I looked at the schedule and thought, oh, that's a shame for Sheffield that we're playing him today.
Yeah.
Progression.
Take away Lewis, they were 4 of 29 from 3-point range. They were also 10 of 19 from free throws. They had 21 offensive rebounds, but only 12 second chance points.
Well, it was 21 offensive rebounds is fine, but as I say, if every time you don't get one, it's a layup at the other end. You've got to have some degree of floor balance. That's number chasing, that's stat chasing. I got my rebounds, I'm fine. The point sometimes you got to say, no, I'm not going to go get my rebound. I'm going to get back and guard Mark Loving and trail. So I just thought, I thought this was a wreck game, wreck game for Manchester. I was disappointed in them.
Let's come to today's games. 4 games to get through, starting at Plymouth, where the City Patriots beat the Newcastle Eagles 98-93. Another overtime win for Plymouth this weekend. Plymouth hitting threes, Newcastle getting inside, even if it was with their guard. Pretty free scoring in the opening stages. 16-13 after 4 minutes.
Yeah, it was. Again, Newcastle's starting 5 came out efficiently offensively. You're right, got Kyle Johnson going, got baskets around the rim. Their 3-point shooting on the road remains pretty awful. But they were getting what they wanted because they figure out that if Plymouth are starting 3 guards and one of them's got a guard like Kyle Johnson, and Kyle Johnson is a solid post player. The one thing we've seen this year so far is he gets a lot of points in the paint, and so it was Elvisi who had that job. And so they looked, to be fair to Newcastle, they saw a mismatch and they attempted to and succeeded in exploiting it. At the other end, however, their defense gave up, threes, which you just can't give up. It was multiple times. The one for Diakodo, I kind of get, because I think they'd been told to go under the screen, looking at the way Hamlet guarded it, to see if he made his first one, because he's a bit of a spotty shooter. So I get that. Albeit there's going under a screen and there's just standing there, which is what kind of Hamlet did. There's the different ways of going under a screen and then affecting something. But then I think Hawthorne got a couple, which on some fairly shaky closeouts. And obviously they didn't, and that'd be fine if they were kind of shutting Hassan down, but Hassan was able to score as well. So it was a bit of a shootout early on.
It was, and then Bell had 5 points in a 12-0 run, which put Plymouth 42-29 into the lead.
Yeah, and at that point you think, is it going the other way? I thought Darius came in, took what happened on Friday a bit personally, and basically carried the bench unit and had 11 points in the first half. But again, they got nothing from Kennedy, no points in 19 minutes, a couple of rebounds, and Plymouth I thought played with more. They are more energetic. I mean, at the end of the day, if your main the guy who's giving you the most energy is 38, you've got to be looking around thinking what's going on. And to be fair, if you watch that game, you would say it was him who was kind of putting holding on with his teeth at times when it looked like they could have got blown out.
Cohen scored 10 in a row to make it 60-56 in the third quarter. Speaking of holding on, Darius Defoe holding on a little too aggressively, called for an unsportsmanlike on a hard foul, but then Bell seemed to get one in retaliation. I couldn't quite see. There was a bit of a
Bell came in. Bell came in and pushed. It was a push. He came in. He was kind of the second man in. Yeah, I mean, there's actually. I mean, Yeah, the refs actually this game was a tough game at ref, and the refs did an awful job. They blew a call in the first half, which even Kieran Achara was on Twitter, and actually quite a consequential call, because there was one earlier in the game where Hamlet went for claimed an and one, and it was a 50-50 call, and they called it on the ground. Then there was a second one where Brandon went through and kind of threw the ball out in front of him, got bumped by Johnson. But second later, picked the ball up and laid it in, and they gave it as an and one, which was actually a 4-point swing in calls. And Paul on the commentary was saying, "I'm not sure why the refs are talking about this," and Kieran tweeted this because they got it wrong. Yeah, it wasn't close. So they'll look back at that one, and it becomes consequential when games go to overtime. Those kind of little things. But overall, the big flashpoints, I thought they got a bit right. In relation to the Gadsden Defoe thing, I think I actually freeze framed it at kind of the point where Darius kind of swipes down, and he is my guy, but I am going to actually look out for him a little bit here, because Ty Gadsden quite properly kind of leaned right into him, to protect the ball, what you're meant to do. And Darius swiped down at the ball, but Gadsden got his head there, and he's clipped him in the head and he's hit the ball. And it's an unsports-like foul because he's made contact with his head. But I know D, and I know there's absolutely no way he's going to deliberately hit anybody on the head. He'll be pushing, he'll be grabbing, he'll be holding, he'll be doing everything he can. But there's no way in the world he's gonna do that. But then what you look at when you're in the little melee that comes, the reason the melee actually starts is because Ty Gadsden's getting up, and Darius turns around towards him, and then Kendrick Bell comes in and pushes him. And I have to say, I'm not that was called unsportsmanlike. I'm not sure what I assume that's correct. In the NBA, that would be a technical, because the ball was
my first thought was that I couldn't work out why there was not, because I didn't see what the call was on the other one.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work out why there were no free throws on the back of an unsportsmanlike. And then I thought, well, surely there would be a technical if anything had happened in the melee. It'd be a technical, so therefore you'd have one free throw for the technical and two free throws for the.
I'm not sure what the rule is about having
cancel them out, each other out.
I'm not sure what the rule is about having unsportsmanlikes after the ball is dead. And I'm sure I assume the guys are right about that.
Yeah, I assume they are as well. Yeah,
strange thing to get wrong. So no, I thought that they got that about right when I looked at it back. It doesn't become a melee if Bell doesn't come involved. I think what happens is, I think Defoe goes over and picks Gadsden up. That's what.
Yeah. There was another unsportsmanlike about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter for a swinging elbow on.
Dusha just kind of, and Paul called that one right as well. Cohen and Dusha were kind of niggly with each other the whole game.
The difficulty was that was at the same time that all the technicals were kicking off in London, and I was like, wait, hang on, there was a technical here, and there was a.
Here's the thing. In order to avoid any controversy, I didn't watch the second half of the London game.
Okay.
Or even the first half of the London game. I didn't want to get myself into any more trouble. So you're gonna have to talk us through all of that.
I will do. Yeah. So into the fourth quarter, Eagles on a 13-3 run to cut it to 74-70. To put themselves in front. In fact, 74-70, 75. But a 6-0 run the other way, and it's 83-78. Yeah,
and basically at this point, this is where the game kind of got away from Newcastle, not because of what the guys on the court were doing, but because Mark chose that he wasn't able to play Ubiaro in the second half because he hadn't been very good in the first half, to be honest, defensively and offensively. He played Kennedy. He had to play Kennedy because Hamlet was very, very disconnected to the game. But basically, after the end of the third quarter, he couldn't make a sub other than Darius for Hassan French, and that was just one. It's just what he gets tired, he comes in, and that meant that the guards that they have, who've had, Cohen, Hamlet, and Johnson, are playing a lot of minutes in a high octane game. And I thought they ran out of steam a little bit. Now I know that the Plymouth guys are also playing a lot of minutes, but they've got a little bit more depth there with Brandon there as well, who's giving them something, because they've got Gadsden, Dusha, Jules came on a little bit at the end, and then you got Brandon giving you something as well. And I just thought Newcastle wore down, but I did think they showed pretty solid fortitude to not even, went down 5 with a minute and a half to go. They kind of chipped away and got themselves back in.
Slightly more than a minute and a half to go. But 2:12 to go. Hamlet misses 2 free throws. It's 83-80 at that point. Hassan then
in a row and then missed 5 in a week.
I know, it's bonkers, isn't it?
Mental.
It is, yeah. Hassan, misses an easy one in the key that you would expect him to knock down. Johnson then goes to the free throw line, 1:37 to go, 83-82. Gadsden manages to break through a double team, draws a foul, 1:19 to go, goes 1 for 2 from the free throw line, 84-82. Hamlet then misses, and Plymouth away on the break, trying to throw an alley-oop pass. And Cohen, great defensive play to come up with the steal.
Yeah, got back, that's right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at the other end, he misses a layup. Johnson with an offensive rebound misses that as well. There's a bit of a melee on the floor, rugby scrum, jump ball call, Plymouth ball on the end line, 30.2 seconds on the clock.
I thought it was 30.1 from memory, but you were right.
Yeah.
30.2
seconds on the clock.
Newcastle missed 3 layups on that possession.
Yeah.
And that comes down, that can only be, weary legs because of the lack of production they've got out of their bench to give them the rest.
Yeah.
It all knocks on, So they did, and 6 point. You're right. So 6.2, and I was on that as well.
So Plymouth run the clock down. Bell with an elbow jumper that misses everything, and a shot clock violation is called. So 30.2 minus 24 should say 6.2 on the game clock, but it says 3.1 on the game clock. So there's a timeout called. The referees chat it over. The teams come out of the timeout. The referees go to the table and tell them to put. They put 5 on the clock during the timeout.
Yeah.
Players came back out onto court, and it went back to 8 on the clock. And obviously, this affects. You kind of want to know how long was on the clock before the timeout if you were drawing.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. One, it's the biggest advertisement for review. The biggest.
Well, my thing about it is, right, I'm sitting there watching it. Now, I know I'm taking notes because we're doing this later on and I'm going to need to know how long it's to go. But somebody out of one of the 3 officials or the table officials must have known that there was, because it was a sideline ball. So they knew, they must have known it was 30 seconds on the clock at the point at which they got hold of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, from my perspective, you're obviously looking, because that's kind of in your danger zone as to whether you foul or whether you don't. And so that's an immediate thing. And how nobody, and particularly the table official who starts the clock, right? Button, start the clock, 30.1. How they've managed to get to 8 seconds, is beyond me. I thought they were going to stick at 5, and I was going to have a rant about that. But how they managed to get to 8 seconds, it's now it is an argument for review. But you have to be connected. If you're an official, and that means all the guys on the table in particular, you've got to be connected to some of the stuff that's going on, right? And we all know, because you're in that second. If it's 27 seconds, you're fouling. If it's 28 seconds, you're probably fouling. If it's 30 seconds, you're not. If it's 32 seconds, you're not. Now, you say it was 30.2. Maybe one of the refs heard 32. Thought it was 32 as opposed to 30.2.
Yeah, maybe.
If that's the case, that's unfortunate, but that could be it.
Yeah, it could be. That's
what's on the clock.
Very
what's on
plausible.
The table.
Yeah.
The table says 32, 30.2.
Or the PA guy had said it out loud, and that was one person's recollection of it. He'd said 30.2.
Again, Eurocup, this doesn't happen because we get the check. And again, these games are on YouTube, so the concept of a table, a ref just saying, just rewind that back to back 30 seconds just so we can check that.
Don't take us back to Manchester Evening News Arena in 1998, where we had a 3 turn to a 2 turn to a 3 on TV replay.
I can do it on my phone.
I know.
Everything. I mean, at gym, I can do it on my phone. I could show it to them on the bench. I remember.
Although there is part of me going, actually, the assistant coach should be able to say it was 30.2, ref.
Well, yeah, but the Eagles assistant coach is going to be quite happy with 32.
Yeah, true.
They're not going to say anything. So maybe the Plymouth assistant coach should be able to say that. I'm quite sure the Eagles are saying nothing at all. You want to give us 8 seconds?
So the reason it makes a difference is because obviously they take the time, they run the clock, they drive to the basket. Even if it was 6.2, the ball was out of his hands in advance of 6.2. Gordon, is it Gordon? I've lost where I am on the Gordon lays it in.
The ball at the top and the attack.
But there's 1.6 seconds left, which wouldn't have been there if they'd ran 6.2. Now I know he'd probably have gone a little bit earlier, but it's tied in at 84, and actually, you know, the timeout advance the ball. Gadsden front rims a 3-point shot on heavy pressure, but they shouldn't really have had an opportunity to take that shot. I thought Dusha was more open as well. I don't know why they didn't give it to Dusha.
It was going to Gadsden.
Yeah.
Just like Eagles were throwing it to Gordon, you know.
Yeah.
Going away your matchup is.
So into overtime, there was a momentum shifter play, I thought, where Bell got a block and then they run back the other way and Dusha hits a wide open corner 3 to make it 89-88.
It was hideous. I'm sorry, from my perspective.
Yeah.
You know, to be fair, Bell made a good play, and Kyle Johnson was tired. Kyle Johnson played 30-odd minutes on Friday night. He played 38 minutes tonight, you know, and he didn't quite have the lift, but he thought he had a layup, you know, so he missed 2 or 3 layups in the fourth quarter and in overtime, which was just down to legs. And again, that comes back not necessarily to Kyle Johnson because he started them off in the game. It comes back to everybody else off the bench who's not giving them anything. But if you look at it, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, that was a 1-on-0 or a 1-on-1 fast break, right? A 1-on-1 fast break. There is no excuse because you're not going. No one's flying in there for an offensive rebound. There is no excuse for you not to be matched up in transition. Hamlet was the guy who was the nearest to Dusha in the corner. He was looking at Brandon as Brandon had the basketball. French was under the basket with somebody. The defensive communication can't have been there, you know. And Hamlet wasn't attached to the game defensively all night, I'm afraid. And so I'm not sure it's necessarily his fault, but he was the guy who was nearest. He has to see Dusha. They have to, you know, they have to be immediately into scramble and into defensive mode when that turns. Instead, he got a wide open 3 off a 1-on-1 fast break. You know, wide, couldn't have been more wide open if you tried. So, and he knocked it down. And credit to LVC, he's been knocking down shots. So you've got to knock the shots down. But from a coaching perspective, I look and think, how the hell has he got that shot? He used to run a drill called 5v4.5. I don't know, some of the coaches probably do it, whereby you would have 4 guys defending and one guy would have to run to the other end of the court and then run back. So he'd be like the trailing defender. And the other four guys would have to scramble and fill the gaps until the other guy got back.
Yeah.
I just don't see I don't see the urgency. I didn't see the urgency. And in particular, it was Hamlet this game. As I say, I thought he was disconnected over the 2 games. But it was a big play. It was a massive momentum shift. But it's not so much you miss the layup. It's like you give up the 3.
So Gadsden then makes 2 free throws to make it a 3-point game. And then Gordon misses a corner 3. Patriots on the run, and Gordon sort of runs into him. No play on the ball. His 5th foul. It's Gordon unsportsmanlike. And it's 2 free throws, 93-88. And that was probably that.
I think Darius made a 3, didn't he? He should shoot.
Yeah, he made a 3 to make it 95-91, but it wasn't going to be enough really.
Yeah. I think the unsportsmanlike call was probably about right. It was. I don't think there was a deliberate effort to stop that. I think Gordon was out of control as opposed to anything else. He wasn't the last man, but it was kind of a bundly kind of the charge, you know, kind of foul at St James's Park, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, I can see why you're gonna call that.
Yeah.
But you know, the bigger one is, as I say, those two continuations in the first half. 1 point there makes a big difference in the end.
Gadsden 28.6 of 13 from
17 foul shots, Dan.
14 of 17 from the free throw line.
17 foul shots. Yeah.
Hassan 25 points.
I think he was
yeah.
Not seeing the refs bailed him out. You know, I mean, there may have been 1 or 2 couple on the 3-point shots, which I couldn't really see. But at the end of the day, you know, you got biggest skill in the league, and the biggest definitive game-turning skill in the league is, can you defend without fouling? Biggest one. It's the biggest underestimated important skill.
Hassan, 25 points, 12 rebounds. Dusha, 12. Johnson, 20.6 rebounds. Defoe, 19. Gordon and Cohen both had 15 points apiece. London Lions. Hey,
sorry, before you did that, did you say French is line in this game?
I probably did, but I don't remember it.
10 points, 19 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks. You know, and I mean, Defoe had 19 points in 16 minutes, but French, and the other thing was Hassan at 25. He was 12 of 27. And to be fair to French, he's given them a lot in relation to contesting shots.
He spikes a few, doesn't he?
Spikes a few and contests a few, and there's a couple of times where his feet are quick and people think they've got a shot on him and they haven't. So if he stays out of foul trouble, which he didn't at Bristol, he only played like 17 minutes. Newcastle's problem today was probably that the best 3 players were Gordon, Defoe, and French. It's difficult to get the ball on court at the same time. You know, so yeah, so French. I think French is going to put up some weird lines, but yeah, 10, 19, 6 assists, 3 blocks, not bad. Great win, though. Sorry,
and great weekend.
I'm going to say actually, good job by the rookie commentator as well, and the homer who sits next to him. No, to be fair, Paul, great job. I actually enjoyed it, and it wasn't far that you were pretty much on with everything.
London Lions 82, Bristol Flyers 64. Taylor was back, but Ward Hibbett, Willow Chiume, and Zubcic joining the already missing players. So they only had 8 guys, London. But they did have the first 5 points of the game. The drama of the first quarter was all the technicals. Lions had about 3 in 2 minutes. One, we didn't see it, but
watch these back. I didn't watch it, so I wish you'd joined it. Well, come on, tell us.
So we didn't see it, but somebody had obviously swished it, and the net had got caught. And apparently, Luke Nelson ran on court while the play was on court, being played at the other end of the floor, and pulled the net down. So Ed teed him up for that.
So right. 6 man.
The second one was
Ben Thomas. Ben Thomas did that, didn't he? Or not Ben Thomas's assistant.
Oh yeah. Last year was it or the year before?
You never forget shit. You know, you never forget stuff. So no, you can't do it. You know, ultimately, if Ed teed him up, good for Ed. Yeah.
The second one was for a vociferous protest by the bench. I think it might have been Urban who was the one that was most egregious, judging by the reaction. And I think they were right in their protest, by the way, because there was it looked like the Bristol player had swung on the ring when the ball was in the air, so it should have been a goaltend. Now, I guess the only thing was chance to go in and all of that, but it looked wrong to me, so I can understand why they were complaining. And then Kufos. You didn't see all of it, but he was having a long discussion with the referee, and I assume the discussion went on for too long, and that was his third technical. But while all that was going on, Best and Nelson were hitting threes either side of the first quarter break, and they went on a 13-3 run to 33-19. Nelson then got another technical, but obviously the first one, even though it was on him for running on the court, is on the bench, so he doesn't leave the game.
Court,
So he got one, and there is a classic sort of face pull after that technical. And then but the best bit, bit is Ryan gets called for another technical, or the bench gets called for another technical. So that would be the third on the bench, and Ryan would be ejected from the game. Yeah. And again, you don't see this, but Josh is telling you what's happening in commentary.
Right.
Steve Nelson, who's in the front row behind the Lions bench, is standing up going, "That was me saying that." So I think it was Steve Ellis had called a technical because he thought he heard something from the Lions bench, but actually it was from Steve Nelson. So he waves off the technical because obviously at that point you'd have to eject the coach because it would have been three bench technicals.
I'm intrigued by the concept that the player who runs on the court to pull the net down is actually a bench technical.
Yeah.
See why? It's because he's not signed in as playing in the game, is he?
No, he's not in the game.
I get why it is, but I've never come across that before.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a player. So
Yeah, but it's just the same as if Legend Roberton puts his hands up and gets a technical, it goes on the bench, doesn't it? It's actually on him, but it's on
he's actually come on the court.
Yeah, yeah. I
Come on,
suppose it's equivalent to 6 players on the court, isn't it?
It is, yeah. 6 players on the court. Well, sure, you've not got a technical 6 players on the court and another one for pulling the net for interfering with the equipment.
Well, yeah, you're allowed. Yeah. So anyway, that was a drama, and then a 9-0 run just before the first half got it to 44-23, and that was basically the game.
I watched the first 6 minutes, to be fair, and the impression I got was the same as I've had every time London have played Bristol, which is Bristol are successful in the BBL because they have a degree of athleticism, physicality, and shot creation at all positions, right? Except against London. Because against London, they don't have that advantage. In fact, they have a disadvantage in relation to athleticism, a disadvantage in relation to shot creation, a disadvantage in relation to physicality because they've got Gufos Sharma. The London guards are big, so Best and Nelson are big guards, even if they're small. Urban, the wing is big, so he can comfortably guard VJ King. So they don't have the mismatches that they have against everybody else that they've been so successful. And it was about 10-4 or something, and about 12-4. And I went back to the Plymouth Newcastle game, and by the time because the Plymouth Newcastle game went to overtime, then straight to Manchester, Sheffield, because we do this at 7:30. And to be honest, I'd kind of formed my conclusions early enough. If I'd known about all those technicals, I'd probably gone back. But in relation to the game themselves, look, every team playing London now, it's in London's gift. They only had 8, but they look at the 8 that they had, it's all about, they have a drop off to their 12, 13, 14, 15 players, but those guys are hurt, so they're not playing. Probably because they were overplayed in Glasgow. Wonder why.
So Kufos 18 points, 11 rebounds. Nelson 18 points, best 16. They were 12 and 29 for 3. Watson Gale 17.6 rebounds, Bell 16, Ollison 13. The shooting splits for Bristol 37% from the floor, 33% from 3-point range, 52% from the free throw line.
Yeah, yes. But they got the win they needed on Friday. So
yeah,
they're pretty set for third.
Yes, if not second.
Not second, yeah. I mean top 3.
Yeah. So Manchester Giants 70, Sheffield Sharks 65. Jalen Pipkins in for Ty Flowers.
Oh, it's great. You sort of Flowers for a Pipkins.
Yeah, it sounds like kids' TV, doesn't it? Pipkins.
There is. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean this. I don't mean to mock or to make fun. But there has to be a higher proportion of slightly unusual names in the basketball playing fraternity in comparison with the rest of society
than average.
You can't tell me that there are the same amount of accountants who are called things like Turn Flowers or Jalen Pipkins or Chuck Guitar, to use my favorite
Chuck Guitar, yeah.
I never always give Chuck a mention, and or all of those guys. It's just not. It's like you're saying these guys. You think,
that's probably how they were spotted as kids, wasn't it? They were. The unusual name stands out on the stat sheet.
Well, you just wear the orange. Always getting those wear the orange boots. The orange.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, no, they picked him up from Finland. It's an interesting move because, I mean, to be honest, we kind of saw it coming, didn't we? Flowers didn't play in their success at Leicester, which was, when Leicester were in a little bit of flux and they didn't quite get their lineups right. So but the interest, and there was no real path to minutes for Flowers. I think, as I said that early on, it was difficult to see how he was going to play unless he was, really going to usurp one of the other guys. And so it's interesting that Atiba's kind of replaced him with somebody who's, is probably 6'4" and athletic, who can shoot, as opposed to someone who's like 6'9", which is what they're saying in Flowers. So they've taken, I think, the same view, which is, there wasn't enough minutes there for another kind of big, after all they got rid of Oganyemi, and he was probably a better big than Flowers proved to be. So there's not enough minutes there for him. So we're going to go and get another athlete, a little bit like we did last year with Devontae, what's his name, and
Wallace
and Antoine Johnson. So now suddenly they've gone from mega big to mega small. And at one point, Brittino and Pipkins were playing the 4 because Nichols wasn't in the Tiba's good books. But yeah, and Manchester played like they'd had a good telling off. to be, or maybe they'd given themselves a good telling off. I don't know, after Friday night, because there was a degree of. It's easier against Sheffield because Sheffield are more systematic and slower, to be fair, down the court, and they run the sets in a certain way. So it's kind of easier to be more diligent because you don't have to get back in transition every time out. But Manchester, I thought, were a lot more diligent in this game, and they started off. You kind of locked in when Lee was making shots and Fletcher was throwing the ball around, and and also in the game, Manchester kind of moved to change to a zone a little bit as well, and tried to mix things up because they're running short bench as well without Nathan Robinson. And Robertson and Lewis are the only two. They didn't play Callum Jones much. I didn't play much on Friday either. I thought he was quite good on Friday. I'm so surprised Callum's not playing that much. So yeah, it was an interesting game to watch.
It was a slightly unusual game for Manchester. I mean, Manchester led 13-8. Sheffield had a 9-0 run to 13-17, but there wasn't any massive runs or massive stoppings of scoring that we associate with Manchester, particularly at home. It was just a bit more back and forth, a bit more like a normal game, wasn't it?
More like a proper game, yeah.
Yeah.
They broke out around the half-time break, and they got themselves a little bit of separation around the half-time break.
They got to 10 points with Liam Fletcher, and then Pipkins hit a couple of threes and got it back to 55-51.
Yeah, they were just sitting in the zone at that point. Pipkins, I think, judging by the speed and the height that he, came down the lane in the last minute to try and dunk one, it's going to be an interesting watch, actually. It's going to be interesting to see how Tiba manages all the guards now, because he's got basically 4 guards there and Rutino. Pipkin's coming from Finland and, has a rep as a bit of a high flyer. So that might add kind of Sheffield watchability quotient. I mean, that might go a little bit as a result. There was, but yeah, and it went back and forth. Then there was, then the Tiba had a bit of a meltdown. Well, not a meltdown, but a kind of a long. I'm going to give the rest credit on this one. Actually, he had a long, angry rant, primarily because Rod Glasgow got tripped and they didn't call anything, and he was upset about that. And then the very next play down, there was a borderline goaltend in the fourth quarter where Robertson knocked away a shot from Nelson, I think. And actually, I'm not even sure it was a goaltend, to be honest, because I'm not sure the ball got above the height of the rim. And if the ball doesn't get above the height of the rim, it can't be a goaltend because it's going to go in. It has to be going up if it's not above the height of the rim. You know what I mean? It can't be coming down. But Adiba, basically, I think he was very annoyed with the non-call on Glasgow, because we saw a cutaway of that beforehand. So he, got his technical and kept going. And I thought Chris Dodds did very well just to basically listen to him. Yeah. It
was one of them where, given the point at which his technical was assessed, the duration after that can easily lead to a second one. Put it that way.
Yeah, he kept going. He kept going.
Yeah.
And and I don't want to see people. If there's, I thought it was a good example of turning the other cheek. Not taking stuff personally, understanding that there's a lot of pressure on. This is proper professional sport. Maybe understanding that maybe we might have missed a call here or there, and that it's going to get a coach aerated, and you give him a technical, and then you talk to him. But at the moment, unless he says something which goes so far beyond the pale that you just can't accept it, then just turn. I don't want to. I always think it's compounding. It's what I talked about with Cohen at Cheshire a couple of weeks ago, compounding bad situations. By when ultimately what you want to do is to maintain your authority over the game, but get through to the end of the game as well. So as I said, I thought they did well not to give him his second one. And actually, I think he was also trying to fight. I mean, I agree with you. I think he was very close to the line.
Yeah.
Of it, and I think and maybe if Ian McDonald had been stood over there instead of Chris Dodds, maybe Ian's got a slightly quicker whistle, so maybe he would have been off. But I'm on the side of the slightly slower whistle in situations like that.
Same. So it went back to 10 early in the fourth quarter. Sheffield had a 12-2 run to 63 apiece.
Albeit, sorry, I should say, as a fan,
Yeah.
there is nothing better
Yeah.
than viewing as the other coach is thrown out.
Yeah.
As a coach, I hate it.
Particularly somewhere like Manchester,
where they've got to
where
walk
the
around.
bench is at one end and the
Yeah.
way out is at the total opposite.
Yeah.
They've got to walk.
Happened to me at Worcester. Although I didn't have to go that way, I just had to go around the back of the back
Yeah,
basket.
yeah.
But then the dressing problem with Worcester was the locker room door.
Nobody had a key. Yeah.
No one had a key. So that's waving me off, and I'm saying, "Well, I can't get in the locker room. Where am I meant to go?"
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's always fun when that happens. But from a fan's perspective, but from a game's perspective, no, good. Let's have a bit of emotion.
So basically, they got to 68-65, and then nobody could change the scoring. Lewis missed a three with 2 minutes.
Sheffield were playing really good defense.
Yeah.
You know, Manchester were tired. You know, they're playing very light bench, very short bench, and they were struggling to get any shots. And Green's kind of energy's just waned a little bit. And Lee's good for about 7 minutes at a pop, and after about 7 minutes, he looks like he's about to, looks like he's 20,000 feet up base camp. On Everest. So they're having to manage Lee's minutes, having to get a little bit of Robertson, and without with the way that they defended Fletcher near the end, and Fletcher was tired as well. Manchester really struggled to get a shot last minutes. I thought Sheffield should have won. I thought Sheffield would win because they were getting better shot quality, but they weren't able to knock them down. And they were playing small as well. They were playing with Glasgow, Ramsey, Nelson. And Del Pesh was in instead of Cook, and Retino was playing the 4 again. So
let me just.
They couldn't get the shot. They couldn't get the shot.
Quickly run through it. Lewis missed a 3, Retino turnover. Robertson missed, fast break block by Lee on Nelson. Glasgow missed a 3, Fletcher missed. Delpesh went for a dunk and that missed. Fletcher then went to the free throw line with 20 seconds to go. He went 0 for 2.
I thought that was Pipkins on the dunk.
Was it? Oh, I've put down Delpesh here.
Might be wrong.
Maybe, yeah.
Might be wrong.
Whoever it was tried to make a spectacular play over Robertson. Robertson was inside the no charge circle, so
he moved out the way.
Couldn't have been a charge even if he'd got there, sort of thing. Fletcher then misses 2 free throws with 20 seconds to go, so we're still at 68-65. Ball's deflected. Ball's deflected out of bounds. There's a timeout, 11.6 to go. Giants had a foul to give at that point. But there was a combo block between Lee and Green. They gave it to Lee on the commentary. I didn't know whether Green might have got a bit from behind as well. And then Giants broke away. Robertson dunked it, and that was finally 70-65.
Great. I think it was Lee. I'm not sure Green got him, but it was a little imbalance. But again, that was a disadvantage of playing small because Pitino was filling that spot at the 4, whereby you set the screen and then you spin or you roll to the kind of the bounce pass spot to get your quick layup. But because Pitino's the guard, he's used to making layups off one leg, attacking the rim. Instead, he's making it off a set. Of a 2 foot set thing, so you just have to push the ball up there, and that's the type of shot that Lee and Green, Green in particular, obviously did it against Caledonia when they made the play in the last second there. That's the kind of play that they make. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that you kind of give you take what the defense gives you. I get that, but you're down quick 2 within 9 seconds, maybe. I suppose not a bad idea. They just missed 2 foul shots. And they did have another timeout, so yeah, it's fair enough. Just good athletic play. Probably the wrong guy in there. If that's Del Pesh, he dunks it.
Yeah, maybe. Lee with 17 points, Fletcher 16 points and 9 assists. Green and Robertson both 13 points and a combined 19 rebounds. 0 bench points for Manchester.
So yeah, well, it's hard to Nick Lewis quite well. So that's basically going to be their point to put their bench points.
Delpesh with 12 points and 8 rebounds, 7 of them offensive. Retino with 10. Everybody who came on had at least 5 points in comparison. Let's go.
Yeah, they're close, Sheffield. I think they're actually a little bit like Newcastle. They're close, but there's no teams that you can afford to be close against. You've got to be better than them. You've got to beat somebody. You know what I mean? It's a it's really thin margins in the league at the moment in relation to to wins and losses outside of Surrey, really.
Yeah. Final game of the day, Cheshire Phoenix 91, Leicester Riders 105. Congratulations, Pablo, if you're listening.
Right.
He wasn't there. You may have noticed the absence of Leicester's assistant coach, Pablo Vasquez.
I heard the commentary. Yeah, I get that Jamel's and George are due as well. Quite soon.
Yes, yes.
Well, yes, congratulations. I don't know if the world's ready for a little Pablo, but there we go.
Well, yes, there we go. Both teams shooting well early on. Nick's with a couple of threes, led by as many as 7, but Love and Jackson hitting shots too. It's 28-26 after the first quarter.
Yeah, Leicester ran a clinic in this game. I watched basically all of it through, not in real time, but they're really fitting together. And the big thing was Love coming off the bench and making shots and looking really comfortable, which is the first time he's done that, which is about right because it's about a month in now, so that's what he should be now. I just thought that they started off with a plan, which was get the ball into Nelson Henry to go at Neighbour, and basically they played Neighbour and Teague off the court, and because Neighbour played 11 minutes and Teague played 16 minutes, and they played them off the court by being able to score on them inside, which meant Ben had to reach a little bit, and Ben starting 5, and they were able to score the ball because Jamal shot the ball really well, Jack shot the ball really well when he came in the game. And they got enough out of Archibald and Austin and Evans, obviously, to keep the scoreboard ticking. But then he had minutes where he had to play, go a little bit deeper into his bench. So he had Hudson and Ulf playing at the same time, which I thought was a bit of a stretch because neither of them have played much at all. So putting both on at the same time against Leicester, and they didn't do bad. They both were impactful and reason, but the kind of the cohesion with those units isn't going to be there. And the way that Rob was rotating was that he was able to keep Jackson or Loving on the court at any time, and he had obviously had a backup point guard who was playing great in Love, and then he had if any time they were short, they were getting good shots off penetration. Mackenzie just knocked it down. And it got to that point whereby I think they had 58 points in the first half, something like that. It's like you can't win against Leicester.
I was thinking exactly the same. Even though it was close, I was thinking you can't.
You've got to find a way. You've got to take something away. And I mean, it helps when Mackenzie's knocking down shots.
Yeah.
But if Loving's going to drop 20, he's not going to drop 20 by standing with his feet behind the 3-point line and shooting threes. And and I just think they really didn't have much of a plan as to what they were going to take away. And it's not easy to take away anything. I get that, but if you're starting Will Neighbour on Nelson Henry, then you got to be pretty sure that they're going to go at him. You better be ready to send a little bit of help early, just to try and.
I think what didn't help as well is Neighbour. I think he missed his first 3-point shots as well. So you sort of going, you can't take advantage of that at the other end as well.
Yeah, you can't. That's true, but it's I always look. Primarily, we're at that point of the season, right, whereby everybody knows where the opposition shots are coming from. If you don't know, you're negligent, right? So you got to know that Larry Austin's looking to get his head down. He's going to take it in transition. You know Marcus Evans is going to pull up primarily and shoot the ball, even if you've got a hand in his face. And similarly, Kimball Mackenzie on his one dribble pull up is there. Mark Loving's got. You know what Mark Loving is. What Zach Jackson. Everybody knows what shots these guys want to take. So the issue is, how committed are you to taking away the shots that people want to shoot? I can go through every guy in the league, as to where they want to get the ball and where they're most impactful and effective. So how are you going to take them away, and what you're going to give up, because you can't take everything away. So you have to determine what is it we are willing to let the opposition have, in conjunction with taking away some of the other stuff. Now, Nelson Henry hasn't, obviously we've talked, he's dropped off a little bit this year, right? But that's a match of he's going to, I'm going to be sending a second guy or stunting a second player towards him to get the ball out of his hands, so he can't get to the front of the wing on Will Neighbour. Now, part of that is to protect Will Neighbour from his from foul trouble as well, because he's a critical part of their offense. Even when he's not making shots, he's a critical part of their offense. And I didn't think, I thought it started like that. And then, you know, some of these games are getting into shooting contests.
Mm.
You know, everybody's getting the shots that they want. It's just who's better. Well, Leicester have the best shooting team in the league, probably even including London. Certainly the way Mackenzie's been shooting the ball. And you can't get into a shooting contest with Leicester. You just have no shot. You have to disrupt them. And the games that they've struggled with against the better defensive teams, and that was Sheffield in the last game. That was London in the cup final, whereby they limit their looks.
Yeah.
I didn't think Cheshire did anything to do that. I thought Leicester ran a clinic. I thought they were really, really good. Mackenzie played like Steve Nash. He played like, you know, John Stockton. He absolutely controlled the game. Probably actually the wrong. It's a typical unconscious bias. I'm picking the white guys. He played like Chris Paul. He got to the elbow, pulled up, knocked down his shots. He crossed people over. He got to the rim. He made the three on the buzzer. He controlled the basketball game. He looks like a different guy to the guy who played 7 minutes in the playoff final last year. Totally different. And that's come with being given responsibility, but also being aware of what's going on, having an understanding what the coach wants, and also obviously it comes from not having Crandall. There's been a vacancy, a vacuum there at Leicester point guard spot all season, and Rob's tried 4 of them. It might well be that he ends the season with a guy who's been there from the beginning. You know, because he's doing what needs to be done.
So just to run through it, Archibald made it. Archibald 3 makes it 47-41 with 2 minutes to go to halftime. Mackenzie scored, then an assist down the lane to Nelson Henry, and then you talked about the slightly crazy 3 after they turned the ball over on the final play, Cheshire, that Mackenzie hits, and Leicester up 11 going into the halftime, 47-48. Nick's actually shot 20 of 37 at halftime, which is pretty good. But Leicester were 19 of 27, 70%. From the floor in the first half. Mackenzie then had 6 in an 8-0 run late in the third quarter, and they were up 21, 55-76. Anderson Archibald did get them back in a 13-5 spell around the final break. They got it to 10 a couple of times, but Leicester always had enough to see it home.
Fake comeback. I'm sorry, it was a fake comeback. It never, you know, they always had enough. It's that they just kept getting open shots. Martin Love knocked one down, Mark Loving knocked one down. There was one remarkable non-shooting foul call in this game towards the end when Bowman was in transition and literally under the basket collecting the ball to dunk and go up to dunk it. And I think it was Jack Hudson came back and reached in and you know got him on the arm, and the ref called it sideline. Which, I mean, someone can text me and explain what that was all about. But I mean, I did kind of a double take and then a triple take, and I know Rob's probably not bothered because you get to run a few more seconds off the clock. Not a great foul shooter, but even so, I'm like, what? Where? You know, I mean, that might be rivaling the Justin Gordon one the other week as being the craziest non-shooting foul of the season. There is such a category which I've just invented. So that was a bit weird. But apart from that, there wasn't that much. It wasn't that overly physical, really. There wasn't too much in the game. It was just, you know, it was what was it what was the old thing, you know, 2 teams, 11 men play for 90 minutes and another 30 minutes and then the Germans win.
You
know, it's like, you know, 2 teams run up and down and shoot the ball and then Leicester win. You know, I'm sorry, you're not going to beat them if you can't hold them to a reasonable number and take something away. And they didn't. So I think, you know, that this part of the season, so much of it is down to knowing your own team and lineups and keeping your own team together and keeping them motivated and keeping them having a focus on what they're doing and a pride in what they're doing, because it's difficult. It's a grind, you know, they're playing an enormous amount of games, enormous amounts of travel. And, you know, and Leicester particularly coming off, you know, what was pretty gut-wrenching last week, because, you know, if they beat Sheffield, you have to think they're odds on to win the trophy. Didn't. And Sheffield deserved to win that game. But what they've managed to do there is to reset, make a couple of important decisions in relation to personnel as to how we're going to play, focus the group, and the group's turned out and dropped 109 on Manchester and 104 on Cheshire. You know, now that's not as easy as it sounds. You know, it takes a lot of institutional I'm not saying greatness, but it takes a lot of institutional knowledge to keep that going and to do what needs to be done and to have everybody accept it and to crack on with it. And and Menzies, you'll come off the bench now, okay, and gives you 11 and 10. That doesn't always happen. We've seen it happen this year with players. I've seen it happen quite close to home with some whereby that mentality hasn't been there. And that type of stuff, which maybe fans don't see, is just as important at this point in getting the results that you need.
Anderson, 5 of 6 for 3 for 24 points. Jack, 17 points, 5 assists. Evans, 14. They were 10 of 23 from 3-point range. Mackenzie, 31 points, 11 of 15 shooting, 5 assists. That ties his career high. He had 31 when he was in college in February 2019. His best in the BBL before tonight was 18 points. Loving with 22. Love 6 of 8 shooting, 20 points and 6 assists. Leicester were 10 of 17 from 3. Their shooting splits were 59%, 58%, 82%. That'll win you a lot of games.
Yeah, it's great. As I say, it's an offensive clinic. It really was to get the ball where we want, make the extra pass, penetrate, get somebody a shot where they need to go. When they missed, it was almost like, what happened there? I can't remember Mackenzie missing 4 shots. I must have fast forwarded through a mistake. They had a couple that were blocked. I don't know if they counted shot attempts. They probably do. They were really, really good. I'm impressed with how they've re-centered. I really wasn't sure which, without Wheeling, without Washington, which way they would go. They were never going to fall apart. I'm not saying that. But the focus that they've played with on the 2 games, albeit exacerbated by Manchester's lack of focus, certainly in this game, focus that they played with, the attention to detail, I thought was really, really good. Cheshire, they're in that kind of 500 role. They're getting the best what they can out of the players. They haven't got the deepest roster. Teague didn't play as much as I thought he would because he was a matchup problem for them as well. He only played 16 minutes. He was +1 in those minutes. I don't know if he's got an injury or anything like that. But they're going to be fine, but they're pretty formed. I mean, Archibald might take them a little bit, take the ceiling a little bit higher. If they can integrate him, it wouldn't surprise me to see him starting and Jamal moving to the 4 because teams are getting smaller. Everybody's getting smaller, and or even Jack. So he seems to be quite a talented guy as well. So we'll see where they go with him.
Quickly run through the league table. London, 20 wins and 2 defeats. Bristol in second with 18 wins and 7 defeats. Leicester 3 games in hand on Bristol in third, 16 and 6. Caledonia then in 4th place now, 12 wins and 10 defeats. Manchester, 12 wins and 11 defeats. Cheshire have dropped to 12 and 14 after the 2 defeats over the weekend. Plymouth, great weekend for them. They're up to 10 wins now, 10 and 13. Sheffield, 8 and 16. Newcastle, 2 games in hand, 6 and 16. And Surrey, 2 and 21. And we probably ought to mention the end of the great streak that was the London Lions women's team, having won 52 games in a row, beaten by Caledonia today.
What's the last 15 seconds? I have no idea how the referee called a foul to give Chantal Handy 2 shots. I mean, nice to know that. I can watch 15 seconds of a women's game and still watch the only call that was made in the whole game and think, what the heck was that? As Holly Winterburn thought as she, went past it, as she ran probably, 2 feet past it without touching her. And watch Chantal Handy shoot an air ball and everybody have a giggle about the foul shots that they got. So I don't know if I have no idea how that call was made. That said, I mean, I did have a quick scan. I didn't watch the game. I was too busy watching everything else. And I did have a quick scan of the minutes and all that stuff. And it appears that the new coach brought in to replace a guy who hasn't lost in 2 years has, benched the point guard, brought in the point guard who they brought in before Christmas as a starter, has benched Herbert Harrigan as well, who was probably their best player. Cena wasn't there. Herbert Harrigan comes off the bench, has 26 points, and appears to have changed everything up to a remarkable degree, which has resulted in them losing. I'm not going there, Dan.
No, no, no. I wasn't expecting anything back other than to acknowledge what an incredible run
I'm
it
not
was.
even going to go what the motivations behind that one might be.
52 wins in a row, and well done to Caledonia for ending that, and to Chantal Handy for knocking down those 2 free throws.
Yeah, well, I mean, I give, to be honest,
pressure situation.
I give Caledonia more. It sounds really harsh, but I give Caledonia a hell of a lot of credit. 52 wins is tough. I get that, but there's probably been 5 competitive games in those 52. And I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade here, but that's the reality of it. The resource disparity has been so great that it's a record, and the players who've played deserve all the credit in the world. But it's apples and oranges that we're comparing. And they can take it with them, but as I say, I hope it means. It's tough. Do I hope it means? I mean, look, we've got a trophy final coming up. I think I don't know who's in the semi. I think it might be Newcastle and Leicester in the semi, and is it Caledonia? I'm not sure.
No, Leicester beat Caledonia.
London and somebody else. I'm not sure. So we're going to have London most likely, and probably against Leicester in the final. That's have improved a little bit, but they've got a way to go before they get to Leicester on the game that I watched in January. So, do I want London to come down a bit? Yeah, I probably do. I'd like to see a competitive game. Do I think that Leicester have got it in them to give them a competitive game? Yes, but London, the only way London are losing in reality is if they're beating themselves now, or if they're, to use a phrase, pissing off enough of their players whereby they're not fussed about winning. And who knows what's gone on there. So no, it's great. It is good. I mean, it is good for the league that somebody beat them. It is. That is undoubtedly the case. It's not the panacea. No. There's a lot to happen for a lot of decisions need to be taken in relation to that league as to the best way of growing it and developing it. But yeah, well done Caledonia, well done Chantal. A concert lass.
Oh right, there we go. Yeah, there you go.
With a decidedly unconcert twang.
Okay.
But, is concert lass. Traveled the world and I think she just retired from GB. Retiring. Is she retiring at Eurobasket, or she just retired? I don't know.
It was one of those things, because her and Azania as well. It sounded like they weren't going, but I was thinking, well, you've just qualified. And it's only a few months ago. Why would you not? But that's
exactly. Well, anyway, they've both been incredible.
Incredible, incredible.
Service. I mean, Azania and I think they both played the Olympics, didn't they?
So, they did.
About 12 years, and these people understand. It's a if being a men's basketball player, it's hard. Being a women's basketball player, there's less money. There's less. The situations even aren't as good as in the men's game. To kind of go through that for 12 years, 13 years, and to continue to play to that standard. Is with all the things that entails is really tough. And it is I'm sorry I'm going on a bit, but there is a product there in the WBBL if packaged right. And I know this from all the girls that we've got, girls sessions we've got going on in Newcastle at the moment, which will take about 5 or 6 years to work through. But there is a product there, which can mimic, or at least kind of baby mimic, what's happened with the Lionesses. What's happened with women's football.
Because the other thing is the GB women's team have done really well in recent years as well. So.
They have. I mean, they've blown a few as well. To be fair, but they have. But if with they have
on their comparative resource.
Yeah. Oh yeah, on their resource. I mean, we've had the benefit of Temi Fagbenley, who is a WNBA player basically, who's been committed to the program, and we're looking now at Kennedy Leonard and Holly Winterburn as being a reasonably, pretty high level European backcourt. We've always struggled in the backcourt with in that really highest level. Chantal will be a miss because she's 6'2" and could shoot, and that will be a miss. And Zania will be a miss because she just knew how to play. But yeah, I mean, I think the gap in the women's talent levels between the women's talent levels in the top of the women's game and our men's team and their talent levels at the top of the men's You know, when you're talking about the high level EuroLeague players, I think the gap is smaller in the women than the men.
Yeah.
It gives us, you know, so it's an opportunity. It's something to work from. But you know, the league is not where it needs to be in relation. You know, if anything, it's a bit bloated. You can't be playing. I'm sorry, but you can't be playing games in front of no one if you want to be seriously. You can't. You know, whether it's just you round up the schools and you get 200 kids in, you know, or whatever, or you get, you know, or there has to be a degree. You can't be playing in leisure. You can't be playing in leisure centres with no seats. But if you're going to be, you know, if we're going to be serious about it, and obviously the BBL's got a Aaron Raiden in now as a CEO. WBBL still kind of a little bit you know, corner shop mentality, I think, at times in some of the clubs, and I think that has to change. I hope it does, because the athletes are great. You know, the athletes are putting time in, and it shouldn't take them to have to do jobs outside of basketball. I know personally 3 of the Eagles women's team have got jobs in the Eagles Community Foundation, full-time jobs, and that basically is able to fund them. And we do a better job than most of getting people into the games. So, you know, if we, you know, it's not a pro league at the moment. It's one pro team, and the rest of it is basically semi-pro. Insofar as the ladies in question aren't getting all the time that they could have to make themselves better. And to be a pro league, you have to generate income.
Yeah.
Get everything else. You know, it's all right to say, oh, we'll be pro. If you can't generate income, you're not going to be pro. So therefore, the organisations behind it, and be it the WBBL or be it Basketball England or whatever, you know, there has to be more of a plan in relation to generation of income, which is what we always come down to, isn't it? When at the end of these rounds, it always comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but there's a bigger room for growth there than there is at the men's team. Because the men's BBL is probably capacity is about 80%. 80% of capacity is being filled. The women's BBL, there's multiple games to say where there's basically nobody there.
Right. On that one. We went. I was just going to say well done, but there we go. So we'll call it an evening for this Sunday. And Dave and I will be back next week to do it all over again. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday. Goodbye.